Hello and welcome to another To It For Media featured interview. I'm your host, Jhaka Wooding Donovan, and in the building today I have Miss Beverly Vanterpool, a daughter of the soil who has launched her book, Build Your Table. We have the details after this quick break.
We mash the gas, them bite the dust. We set the speed while they gathering rust. Inside we heart BVI come first. So please don't be fooled cause they not like us. Once we mash the gas, them bite the dust. Cause we always fast and we always fuss. If you want real speed, you know who to trust. Somebody better tell them they're not like who? They're not like us. CCT fast, like CCT fast, like CCT just generosity, love the community bad, like CCT fast with the 5G. Cause BVI is we.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. As mentioned before the break, in the building I have Miss Beverly Vanterpool. Welcome to It For Media and thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course, you are a daughter of the Virgin Islands, but you have been away for quite some time. So give us a brief introduction. Who is Beverly Vanterpool?
Yeah, so I've been away for 20 years and it's hard to imagine that that long has passed. You know, the years just fly by. I graduated from what was at the time the BVI High School, is now obviously the Elmore Stout High School. I, then went away to university, came back to the BVI for many years. I sort of worked with Ernst & Young, worked with Deloitte, worked with O'Neill Webster. And then at that point, I left and went to the UK, did my MBA, and I've sort of stayed there for the last 20 years. But yeah, my dad was a Methodist minister in the BVI, Reverend Selwyn Vanterpool. My mother was a teacher at the high school. So yeah, I very much consider the BVI home, even though I've stayed away a long time.
Amazing. And of course, you came back home to launch this book. Is this your first release or have you had releases prior?
Yeah, so this is my first book. So we've got the Caribbean launch event. The book came out into the world on September 25th of this year. So it's been out in the world, it's about 6 weeks or so now. But yeah, we're having this celebration, this launch event in the Caribbean and more specifically, of course, in the BVI so that I could share it with everyone here.
Right now, without giving us too much, because of course we want to encourage people to go ahead and get yourself a copy, but what is this book about and what message do you hope to portray with it?
So fundamentally, the book is the book I wish I had at the start of my career, right? So, very much, particularly having spent a lot of time, working for large corporations in the UK, etc. You understand over time, the way you navigate certain professional environments. You understand when you need to lean in, when you don't, how you need to be intentional about managing your career, right? Whether that's about things like networking and building sponsorship and doing these different things to build your brand and make sure that you're known by the right people, the right decision makers, etc. So that's the sort of heavy stuff within the book. But ultimately, the book is bringing that to life through my experience, right? As a woman of color, a Black woman, someone who moved from the Caribbean to the UK via doing an MBA at Cambridge. So I've had all these experiences. I've learned all these things along the way. And very much the book is doing it's best to bring that to life. So I consider it part memoir because it's telling my story, it's telling it through my lens, my eyes, but it's very much geared towards being that advice. I've got exercises within the book, etc. So sort of making sure, hence the focus is on right? So hence it's like, yes, there's some structure there, etc. But it's ultimately my lens on, helping others to build their table, and particularly relevant for people at the start of their careers or people contemplating a shift and just wanting to reflect on, are they doing the right things? Are they taking the right steps as they think about their overall career journey?
Wonderful. What's your target demographic? Are you looking at young people in general? Are you looking at young professionals who would already had their degrees, young women? What are you looking at?
So I positioned the book as being very much for anyone who considers themselves outside the system, right? Mm-hmm. So, the subtitle, Find Career Clarity, Make Bold Pivots, and Thrive, even when the system isn't built for you. Mm-hmm. So, I'm writing from my lived experience, and therefore I think it's relevant for women. I think it's relevant for people of color. I think it's relevant for immigrants, people who've gone through that, motion of kind of changing countries and moving, etc. I think it's relevant for people who are introverts and aren't naturally comfortable putting themselves out there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's relevant for all of these, but ultimately, whether it's useful for you, apart, of course, from wanting to support and wanting to understand my journey, in terms of the action-oriented parts, is I think if you're at a moment where you're looking for change, if you're looking to propel forward, if you're looking to think, how do I advance my career, my life, etc. So yes, I think there's something about people at the start, right? And the earlier you start, the better, right? I think once you're at an age that you're thinking about your career and your future, it's good to be proactive with these things. There's no such thing as too early, but there's also no such thing as too late. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're at a career stage where you're thinking about, why haven't I gotten that next promotion, or I want to make a shift into a different company or industry, and you're thinking intentionally about making those shifts, I think it's also relevant for you.
For your own experience, of course, in addition to the experience you shared in this book, writing a book is an experience. Is it something you always saw yourself doing, or was this an idea that came to you one day?
I always loved the idea of writing. I was the person who, every so often would take the creative writing class, and I very much enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. But I realized over time that maybe I wasn't creative enough to write, the great novel. Mm-hmm. But I always enjoyed writing, so I wrote a lot in a professional sense, you're writing reports and all these things. So I sort of had these two aspects to my, who I was, right? In terms of enjoying the creative journey, but only kind of doing it in a very professional sense. Mm-hmm. So as I happened to, evolve into these moments in my life, mm-hmm. I just realized that in some ways I'd always been writing this story in my head. I very much spent a lot of time in my career, outside the day job, supporting, coaching, mentoring, in particular women, and very much because I wanted to capture these learnings, because I wanted to capture this advice, combined with my passion for writing overall, the two things kind of came together.
What part of sharing this book with the Virgin Islands community would you say you're most excited about?
So many things, right? Fundamentally, here is where it started. The BVI I finished high school in the BVI. The BVI gave me a scholarship for university. Yesterday I went to a couple of the schools and talked to the students. And I think it's so special in terms of that full circle moment where you're able to sort of go from who you were and kind of come back and share and give back. And, for the people who knew me growing up, I was the shyest, most introverted kid. Even in a classroom setting, I said nothing. So, I completely get, being that, quieter student who doesn't know how to go out there and put themselves forward, how to advocate for themselves, how to be intentional in managing their career, right? Growing up, you spend a lot of time sometimes, at least when I was growing up, thinking about, get the right degree or do the right course or get the right job, work for the right employer. So you kind of think about what I describe in the book as the foundational stuff. But you don't necessarily think about all the other things that you need to do to be building your career, right? Because your career is around life, is around relationships, right? And unless you're intentional about building your network and doing all these other things, just the hard knowledge is great. It's a great place to start, but that doesn't get you anywhere, right? And I think, I'm really passionate about this idea. I've seen so many people take charge of their lives and do things differently. And I think it happens when people get the knowledge. It happens when people have mentors and sponsors and coaches and people tell them and show them things that, either they don't have the opportunity to know, maybe there's no one in their network that can tell them these things, that provide this advice. So I'm really passionate about being here, sharing my lessons and hoping that I can, help one or two others.
And of course, this launch in the Virgin Islands is taking place as part of the BVI Lit Fest, which is currently underway. How did that come about for you?
Yeah, so, it was one of those things that Richard was actually, Dr. George's was in London earlier this year, as is the case when BVI Landers are in London, you try and meet up. My husband used to work at the college, so they actually knew each other from back in the day. We met up, I told him about this book at the time I had just finished it, etc. Therefore things took from there. So that again is a perfect example of that things happen because of relationships and opportunity, etc. Right? You've got to do the work, but very much opportunities happen because of your network and who you know.
That is very true. And of course, when we spoke to Dr. Georges about the BVI Literary Festival, he seemed particularly excited about this event and being able to have you interact with students at the college and people who are in the wider community looking to take a similar step. Of course, the process from drafting the book, getting it edited, getting it published, etc., that's a long journey, and it's always wonderful to see those journeys be shared with the members of the public who are students, are young people who would like to get into those areas. Is the book available for purchase throughout the territory already, and is it available online?
Yeah, so it's available firstly in the territory. So we've got our launch event this week. So people who attend that or attended that will be able to buy it there. It's also going to be available at the book fair and the other events around the Lit Fest. We're working with Nook BVI in terms of a supplier, so hence there are going to be books here. Additionally, we've got both ebooks and hardcovers. Okay. Both are available on Amazon and other platforms. So there's no trouble getting the book.
Perfect. And for people who would like to keep up with you, see what you're up to next, maybe when the next book may be coming out, how can they do so?
Yeah, so many ways to do that. So firstly, you can go to my website, which is www.beverlyvanterpool.com. You can also go to careersisters.com. So sisters is SISTAS.com. So Career Sisters is the publisher for the book, my company. We also produced a podcast, Stories by Career Sisters. And what the podcast does is it allows us to bring the lessons, the ideas in the book to life, right? So I interview different women, hear about their stories, but ultimately we're talking about these same themes. Mm-hmm. We're talking about being intentional. We're talking about the importance of community. We're talking about how do you pivot in your career. We're talking about resilience. So all the themes that are in the book are also sort of brought to life in the podcast. So going to those two websites, you can find my social media. You can find the ability to get on our mailing list. We just started a YouTube channel, and when we've got video content, we make that available. So yeah, I'm personally on LinkedIn and Instagram. Career Sisters is on those two, along with being on Facebook and attempting to be on TikTok. So yeah, I'm trying to be out there and kind of making the content available.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to continuing to interact with you throughout the BVI Lit Fest.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for staying tuned with us. I hope to see you at the BVI Literary Festival, and that you stay tuned to 284 Media for more great content.